Gabe, pleasure to have you today.
Thanks
Thanks for taking the time.
Of
Super
course.
stoked to pick your brain. So can you tell me a little bit about what the different construction is on this board compared to previous board that we were making?
Yeah. The target audience for this board, the target weight for this board, and really the general construction of this board was different really from anything we've had in the Slingshot line in the last couple of years. This is really aimed squarely at that high intermediate advanced expert user. So that user that's going to know how to maximize what they need out of the board. And it's also coming in two different attachment connections to the foil. So we have a track and we have a tuttle. And so optimizing around those two definitely changed the way it is in each of the boards and made sure that we had something optimized for each one of those two.
So does that mean that only pro riders can ride this board, or anyone's going to benefit from it?
No. So the layup, when I say layup, layup and construction are synonymous with each other, just for reference. The shape is going to be what the rider is going to look at in choosing, their riding style. And then you just need a layup and a construction to complement that. So if the rider feels confident in the shape that is going to give them what they need, the layup is just there to back that up and really maximize the benefits of the shape. So your intermediate rider is going to feel that stiffness, is going to love it, but just because it is aimed for that higher level rider does not make it unattainable for someone that's looking to progress.
Interesting. So that kind of leads into my next question, which was, are different board shapes better off with different layups? Like, is that something you adjust every single time you create a different board shape?
Yes, particularly around the rails and in the area under your foot and around the box. If we're making a very small, 15-liter dock pumping board, there's very little foam that's going to take any load, and so you need to have a whole lot of reinforcement to make sure that the board doesn't buckle. If you have very hard rails, say on an old windsurfing board or a slalom board, something like that, those hard rails are what we call stress concentrations. And so if you're going to have any load going through it, you need to make sure that it's adequately built. A board like this is honestly wonderful to experiment with layups because there are no really hard edges, and the connection from the foil to the feet is all concentrated in a very small area. It's not particularly thick, not particularly wide. And so that allows you to really optimize in a way that you don't really have to take any external factors into account. And so we can get a very strong layup in a very light final package.
Wow, awesome. Yeah, I felt it under my feet and totally know exactly what you mean when
Good.
you're talking
It's
about it.
working.
So I know that you collaborated with Ken Adgate on this board. Can you tell me a little bit about that process and how it was, working with him on something?
Yeah, for sure. So the shapers, Kyle and Ken, have their idea of what they want the board to feel like. And then the designer of the box also knows, okay, this needs to be set in the board a certain way. So it's Michael McKinley. And so between the four of us, we all had our little areas of expertise of where we have built boards before. And it was really a question of coming to an agreement of what the target weight was going to be, what our stiffness benchmark was, and how much of the weight we wanted to have in the center. Basically, how fragile were we willing to make the front and back of the board in the effort to kind of reduce the swing weight as you're riding around. So really fun, lots of discussions, lots of meetings, lots of texts. And really we came to the conclusion that we wanted to increase stiffness over any other parameter underfoot, and then decrease the swing weight over any other parameter out at the ends. So that's why we came to a single vacuum bagged wrapped sandwich, kind of from your front foot to the back of the box, with of course the reinforcement patches necessary not to rip it out, and then minimal weight and stiffness, I guess, near the front and the back where it's not really necessary, but as much toughness as possible. So if you bang your board into a doorway, you're not gonna break it the first go around.
Yeah. What's interesting is that I've had that board for long enough time that I have banged it many times and it hasn't You know, it
Yes.
hasn't cracked, and I do feel the stiffness under my feet and the reactivity that comes with it. So seriously, really good job with the construction. One question that I have also for who's viewing this interview that would be really interesting to cover is, what do you think about light boards versus heavy boards? Because I've heard that heavier boards carry momentum better,
Hmm.
you know, and I felt that way too. If you're going down a bomb, downwinding, and you're on a
Yeah.
big heavy board, you just carry that speed for longer. But you have a lot of other negative trade-offs by having
Yeah.
weight, and so I wanted to kind of pick your brain and see what you think about
No,
weight.
no, you're right. And I touched on this with Trent. You know, you're a surfer. You know this. If you go out on a big day at sunset or somewhere, you're not on a 6 foot, 4 pound board. You're
Mm-hmm.
on 8 foot board that's super heavy.
Yeah.
And what that does, it allows it to kind of, well, it's inertia is what we call it. So when the amount of energy it takes to accelerate or slow down or turn the board is a lot higher than it would otherwise be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's positive when you need a lot of control and a lot of stability. But the flip side is you really need to input a lot of energy to turn it or to slow it down, or
Mm-hmm.
in the most important topic on foiling, to get it going. Every kind of kilo you need to accelerate forward and lift up out of the water kind of is exponentially more important than just a single kilo, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you're correct that, bigger boards will give you more control. But in your example of bombing down the face of a wave, you do that and then you come to the bottom of the wave and you're going to go right up the back. You need to turn to kind of go to the next
Yeah.
one. If it's, a 16-pound board, it takes so much energy and you lose so much of that speed that you gain just trying to turn it to get it to where
Mm-hmm.
you're going. With a lighter board, might not get to that same top speed, but when you're ready to turn, whoop, you just little pressure on the toes and on the heels, and you're off.
Mm-hmm. So this board is it in between, because it's a trade-off, right? So we're trying to make it stiff right under your feet and
Exactly.
then light on the rails so that
Yeah.
you don't have that swing weight when
Exactly.
keeps it
And
maneuverable.
everything, what you mentioned right now is a good point, that not all weight in a board is equal. The weight between the foil and the human
Mm-hmm.
is not so consequential because the moment of inertia on the yaw axis is not going to be very affected.
Mm-hmm.
So you can swing the board around in any axis, really. If you start adding lots of weight at the front and the back, it's really going to slow down. Well, it's going to decrease the acceleration when you go to swing it around one way or another.
Yeah.
So light at the tips, if you will, and strong where it needs to be, is what we found to be the most efficient construction for a
Yeah.
foilboard.
And you know what's crazy is that when you sent me that board, I saw it was 62 liters, and at first I was like, I'm never gonna ride this thing. And then next thing you know, it's my favorite prone board ever because it actually turns and swings
Hmm.
around. And it's really because the construction that you've created and put the weight in the right places. I think that's what makes a 62-liter board that maneuverable.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean we'll touch on this in some other interviews, but also having the tuttle, which is another way to attach the foil
Mm-hmm.
centered, means that we don't have to spread out the reinforcement over 15, 16 inches as we do on a regular track board. So
Right.
you just need that strength connecting that small 8-inch point to the deck. And so it really makes sure that everything is right where it needs to be and nothing else is outside. So it reduces the swing
Yeah.
weight of the board.
Okay, perfect. So that leads to my last question that I've been thinking about, which is the Tuttle gives you a little bit less range than what you would have on track. So it's
Yeah.
really important that that's in the right spot. And also for the user, it makes it easier because it's always going to be in the right spot,
Hmm.
right? So it really depends on you and where you decide to put that Tuttle. So can you tell us a little bit of how you've come up with the right positioning?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Every shaper has their formula, if you
Mm-hmm.
will, and there is no right answer, because the center of mass of the board, the center of buoyancy of the board, which are not always the same, and the center of lift of the foil, you kind of want to align all those up as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that in an extreme example, if a board has the foil in the wrong place, it means you have to stand in one place to take off,
Yeah.
shift your feet to the other place to ride, um, and then your swing weight is not really optimized for any of those. So I have my formulas that will look at, okay, where is the centroid of the board? Where is the center of the volume? What is my expected mass distribution?
Mm-hmm.
And where do I then place the track based off of that? and it's ever changing, right? Because the box area is going to be where you have the most mass. So
Hmm.
that's going to change your center of mass. And I also have to work with the foil designers and generally know where I expect the center of pressure to be on the foils so it can kind of all line up with itself.
Hmm.
And if I said that we nailed it every time, it'd be a lie. There is some experimenting every time because, of course, the amount of rock or how the tail sucks up water or doesn't suck up water is going to mean that you're going to be shifting forward or back on takeoff.
Hmm.
So it's always experimental, and I have my little formula to give me a best guess, but then it also just looks on experience and everything I've tried before. And with the shapers here we're working with have such experience doing this that between all of us, I think we got it pretty close on the first go.
I really think so. From my experience riding a lot of other boards in the past, you have to play with moving the mass in the right spot, and it's sometimes, like you said, you stand on the board in one place and then you have to shift your feet
Yeah,
another spot when you get up. So that's really annoying to deal with, but so far from my experience, these boards are right on point. So
perfect.
really
Yeah,
good job, Gabe.
thank
Super
you, thank you.
stoked.
That was, yeah, collaboration with everyone.
Yep. Good job, man. I'm super stoked that we got to sit down and pick your brain a little bit. There's a lot
Yeah,
of
I do talk about this too much, and I enjoy talking about it.
yeah,